Have you ever wondered who the sons of God mentioned in the Bible really were? What if I told you that they were not angels, as you were always taught, but something completely different and forbidden to reveal? Today, we will explore a mystery hidden for centuries, an unknown race that the Bible never wanted us to discover. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about the sacred texts and uncover secrets that could completely change our understanding of biblical history. Have you ever wondered who the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6 really were, and why the Bible seems to say so little about them? This passage has puzzled scholars, theologians, and curious minds for centuries. The Bible says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took wives for themselves, and that from this union the Nephilim were born, giants and powerful beings. At first glance, the text seems simple, but if we examine it more closely, disturbing questions arise. Were they angels as we were taught? Were they humans with special abilities? Or something completely different? In the original Hebrew text, the expression Bnei HaElohim literally translates as sons of God. For centuries there has been debate about whether this phrase refers to celestial beings, particularly righteous human lineages, or a hybrid race that combined divine and human characteristics. The translation and interpretation of this phrase are key because they shape our entire understanding of what happened in those times. Some scholars argue that sons of God cannot refer to angels because the Bible also says that angels cannot marry or reproduce, suggesting that the original text points to something far more mysterious. The passage continues by mentioning the Nephilim, described as giants and men of renown from ancient times. This detail is fascinating because it introduces the idea that the sons of God were not merely ordinary mortals. The Nephilim were extraordinary, not only in size, but also in influence and power. The narrative suggests that the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men had significant consequences for humanity, causing corruption and violence, which ultimately led to divine judgment through the flood. This raises the question, if the sons of God were not angels, what kind of beings were capable of producing such powerful creatures? A detailed analysis of the text also reveals deliberate omissions and gaps that fuel the mystery. The Bible does not explain where these beings came from, what their original purpose was, or how their lineage functioned exactly. These gaps have led to the proliferation of alternative interpretations and theories about a forbidden race that the Bible did not want to reveal. Even in modern translations, the passage remains confusing because the chosen words and grammatical structures allow multiple readings, some suggesting the existence of hybrid beings combining the human and the divine. Additionally, the historical and cultural context of Genesis 6 adds another layer of mystery. The text appears just before the account of the flood, implying that the sons of God and their descendants contributed to the increase of wickedness and corruption on earth. This not only shows their power, but also indicates that their existence was time-limited, as if their appearance was part of a plan that needed to be controlled or corrected. The combination of power, mystery, and sudden disappearance makes the sons of God a fascinating subject, full of secrets that official tradition has not wanted to explore in depth. In summary, Genesis 6 raises questions that still have no clear answers. The sons of God could have been angels, extraordinary humans, forbidden hybrids, or something that challenges modern understanding. Their union with the daughters of men and the creation of the Nephilim suggests a lineage that broke known rules, generating consequences that led to the flood. This passage is the gateway to a forbidden mystery that has been interpreted, censored, and reinterpreted for centuries, inviting us to explore alternative theories, apocryphal texts, and historical evidence to try to understand who these beings really were and what legacy they left on humanity. Have you ever wondered why traditional religions offer such different explanations of who the sons of God and the Nephilim really were? While Genesis 6 speaks of extraordinary beings who joined with the daughters of men, the interpretation of this passage has been debated for centuries in Judaism, Christianity, and to a lesser extent, other religious traditions. Understanding these traditional interpretations helps us see how concepts of the divine, the human, and the forbidden have evolved over time. In Judaism, the sons of God are usually interpreted in three main ways. The first, and perhaps most common in antiquity, is that they were fallen angels, celestial beings who descended to earth and took human wives. This interpretation is found in ancient commentaries, including the Book of Enoch, although it is not part of the official Jewish canon. The second interpretation suggests that the sons of God were members of Seth's righteous lineage, while the daughters of men represented Cain's descendants, the wicked line. This reading focuses on the conflict between the righteous and the corrupt, avoiding the complication of mixing the human with the divine. The third interpretation is more symbolic. The sons of God represent human leaders or judges of great power, whose authority and decisions significantly influenced the corruption of humanity. Each interpretation offers a distinct perspective on the story, from literal to allegorical, showing how Judaism has attempted to reconcile the mystery of Genesis 6 without challenging theological boundaries. In Christianity, the discussion about the sons of God and the Nephilim has been equally complex. Some theologians, especially in the early centuries, accepted the idea of fallen angels descending to earth and joining human women, linking this interpretation to broader concepts of spiritual struggle and original sin. This view was popular among certain church fathers, who considered that humanity's corruption was partially influenced by these powerful beings. However, other Christian groups adopted the Sethite line interpretation versus the Cainite line, emphasizing the moral and human dimension of the passage. In both cases, the focus is on how these unions contributed to the increase of evil on earth, preparing the ground for the flood as divine judgment. Fascinatingly, even within Christianity, the debate over the nature of the sons of God was never fully resolved, and diverse traditions maintain different perspectives to this day. Some Christian traditions also connect the Nephilim with historical figures and ancient heroes, seeing them as examples of power and skill distorted by wickedness. This interpretation suggests that the Nephilim were not only physically giant, but also beings of great influence and authority, whose presence had a lasting impact on human history. The narrative serves as a warning about the combination of power and corruption, showing that even extraordinary gifts can be misused if not aligned with divine will. Islam, although it does not emphasize this Genesis passage as much, recognizes the existence of extraordinary beings in ancient times, although the Quranic tradition and hadiths do not elaborate extensively on the sons of God or the Nephilim. However, Muslim scholars examining biblical and apocryphal texts acknowledge that these were beings with extraordinary capacities whose existence may have influenced early human history. This perspective, though secondary, confirms that the idea of hybrid or powerful beings is not exclusive to one tradition, but is a concept that has crossed cultures and religions. One of the most intriguing elements of these traditional interpretations is how each religion handles the tension between the human and the divine. The idea of beings that are neither fully human nor fully divine challenges established logic and theology. So many interpretations seek to limit, reinterpret, or symbolically explain these passages. This has generated centuries of debate and preserved the mystery of the sons of God, while transmitting teachings about obedience, justice, and the influence of power on morality. In summary, traditional interpretations show that the sons of God and the Nephilim have been viewed in very different ways, as fallen angels, pious human lineages, powerful leaders, or extraordinary beings with historical influence. Each tradition seeks to reconcile the text with its theology, avoiding contradictions and preserving the moral and spiritual message. However, this diversity of interpretations also reveals what remains hidden. The true nature of these beings is still a mystery, and the gaps in the narrative have given rise to alternative theories and apocryphal texts, which we will explore in the next section of the video, where we will examine the forbidden race hypothesis and the stories the Bible never wanted to reveal. Have you ever wondered what secrets the Bible hid about the sons of God and the Nephilim that were never revealed to the general public? While the canonical texts offer a brief and enigmatic narrative, apocryphal texts and alternative accounts suggest the existence of a forbidden race, hybrid beings combining the human with the extraordinary, that had a profound impact on early human history. Exploring these accounts allows us to uncover secrets that official tradition has kept hidden for centuries, and that could change our perception of the origins of certain civilizations and lineages. One of the most important texts is the Book of Enoch, which expands the story of the sons of God and the Nephilim in surprising ways. According to Enoch, the sons of God were neither simple angels nor ordinary humans, but beings who disobeyed God by joining with human women, generating offspring that combined the divine and the human. These hybrids, the Nephilim, were giants with extraordinary abilities, endowed with strength and knowledge that humans could not attain. The narrative emphasizes not only their size and power, but also their influence over corruption and violence on earth, which allegedly precipitated the divine judgment known as the Flood. The Book of Jubilees, another apocryphal text, also provides intriguing details. It describes how the sons of God taught their descendants forbidden arts, the use of weapons, astrology, metallurgy, and magical secrets that humanity should not know. This suggests that the forbidden race was not only physically powerful, but also possessed knowledge that broke the rules imposed by God. According to these texts, their lineage was a dangerous combination of strength, wisdom, and ambition, and their influence over humanity was so great that corruption became widespread, justifying the need for a divine reset with the Flood. Furthermore, some texts mention that the Nephilim were responsible for wars and conflicts among ancient tribes, imposing their authority through fear and force. This view portrays the forbidden race not only as a supernatural phenomenon, but also as a historical actor that affected the social and political organization of peoples at the time. Their descendants, sometimes identified with giants or mythical heroes in other cultures, may have inspired stories in civilizations such as Sumer, Egypt, or even Greece, where there are accounts of powerful hybrids or demigod heroes. Another fascinating point is that the apocryphal texts insist that divine intervention to control this forbidden race was inevitable, and that their presence was limited in time. The sons of God and their descendants were a temporary phenomenon, whose existence was marked by a purpose that humanity did not yet fully understand. This detail suggests that the Bible and other official texts may have deliberately omitted information about the forbidden race to protect humanity from dangerous or incomprehensible knowledge, or to emphasize the morality of obeying divine laws. The apocryphal accounts also propose that the forbidden race had extraordinary abilities beyond the physical, including spiritual knowledge and the capacity to influence human minds and morality. This opens the possibility that their legacy was not only material but also spiritual, affecting the perceptions, desires, and decisions of early human societies. The union of the divine and the human in this forbidden race would, therefore, serve as a reminder of the limits God imposed and the consequences of crossing them. It is important to note that these texts were never included in the official biblical canon, which increases the sense of secrecy and mystery. The main reason seems to be that the accounts of the sons of God and the Nephilim were too disturbing or difficult to reconcile with traditional theology. By excluding these details, the official narrative simplified the story, emphasizing moral and spiritual lessons, while the most astonishing aspects of the forbidden race remained confined to study circles and apocryphal texts. In summary, apocryphal texts and alternative accounts reveal that the sons of God and their descendants were not simple angels or ordinary humans. They were a forbidden, hybrid, and powerful race, combining strength, knowledge, and extraordinary abilities. Their influence on humanity was profound, generating corruption, wars, and forbidden teachings that led to the divine judgment of the flood. Understanding these accounts shows us a hidden side of biblical history and prepares us to explore in the next section the historical and archaeological perspective, seeking tangible evidence of this forbidden race and its impact on ancient civilizations. Have you ever wondered if the forbidden race mentioned in apocryphal texts really left a mark on human history? While the Bible and alternative accounts describe the sons of God and the Nephilim as extraordinary beings, historical and archaeological evidence suggests there may be more than myth behind these stories. Exploring these traces allows us to question whether biblical accounts reflect real events, ancient cultures, and societies that coexisted with beings that tradition deemed forbidden. One of the first elements to consider is the existence of giants in ancient tradition. Various cultures around the world recorded stories of giant beings, many linked to divine lineages or fusions between the celestial and human. In Mesopotamia, for example, Sumerian texts mention demigod heroes who built cities, temples, and monumental structures, inspiring fear and respect among humans. In Egypt, certain inscriptions and artistic representations show human figures of extraordinary proportions, associated with royalty or semi-divine beings. These records suggest that ancient humanity not only imagined giants, but actively included them in their conception of the world and history. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more content like this. That way, you'll always be up to date with our upcoming videos. Now, let's continue. Archaeology also provides clues about societies that may have been influenced by extraordinary beings. In several ancient sites in the Middle East, remains of megalithic structures, monumental tombs, and advanced engineering tools have been found, challenging the understanding of how prehistoric peoples could have built them without sophisticated technical knowledge. Some researchers suggest that these constructions could be linked to the Nephilim or cultures descended from the forbidden race, as stories of giants and powerful beings appear in local legends associated with these same places. Although these connections are not conclusive, they generate a fascinating debate about the possibility that biblical accounts reflect distorted or symbolically narrated historical events. Another important aspect is the recording of lineages and genealogies in ancient cultures. Some Arab, Hebrew, and Canaanite tribes maintained oral histories mentioning extraordinary ancestors, leaders endowed with exceptional abilities, or giant warriors who guided their peoples. These traditions coincide remarkably with the narrative of the sons of God and the Nephilim, suggesting that the memory of this forbidden race may have been transmitted across generations. The repetition of these stories in different cultures indicates that they were not merely myths, but memories of events and beings that left a lasting impression on the collective consciousness. Anthropological and genetic evidence also offers intriguing perspectives. Recent studies have revealed patterns of genetic mixing in ancient populations that could reflect the existence of exceptional or rare lineages in remote times. Although the Nephilim cannot be definitively identified as the cause of these mixes, the idea of hybrid descent, as suggested by apocryphal texts, finds some support in the genetic diversity observed in ancient human records. This fuels the hypothesis that the Bible and alternative texts may be narrating the story of extraordinary lineages that really existed, even if their abilities were exaggerated or mystical. Some archaeological findings also point to prohibited rituals and practices that could be linked to the forbidden race. Remains of ancient altars, ritual objects, and ceremonial structures suggest that certain groups possessed special knowledge or practices that distinguished them from the common population. These pieces of evidence align with apocryphal accounts, where the sons of God taught forbidden arts and secrets to their descendants and humanity, generating corruption and challenges to divine order. Finally, the persistence of stories of giants and hybrid beings in popular culture and mythology reinforces the idea that the Nephilim and the forbidden race had a lasting impact. From Sumerian stories to Greek legends and medieval texts, we find references to extraordinary, hybrid, and powerful beings who interacted with humans, shaping history and culture in significant ways. This shows that, although the Bible does not detail everything about the sons of God, the memory of their existence and that of their descendants has transcended centuries and borders, leaving a cultural and symbolic legacy that continues to fascinate scholars and the curious. In summary, historical and archaeological evidence suggests that the sons of God and the Nephilim may not be just mythical figures, but reflections of extraordinary lineages, societies, and beings that existed in antiquity. From records of giants and demigod heroes to archaeological remains, genealogies, and cultural practices, there are indications that the forbidden race left a tangible mark on humanity. This analysis sets the stage for the next section, where we will explore the mystical and symbolic interpretation, discovering how these extraordinary beings also represent profound teachings about power, morality, and human destiny. Have you ever wondered what deeper meaning the story of the sons of God and the Nephilim might have beyond historical and archaeological accounts? While biblical and apocryphal texts describe extraordinary beings and their offspring, mystical and symbolic interpretation invites us to view these stories as lessons about human nature, morality, power, and our relationship with the divine. In other words, the sons of God are not just historical or mythical characters, but symbols of profound truths humanity has tried to understand for centuries. From a mystical perspective, the sons of God represent the boundary between the divine and human, the forbidden union that challenges established orders. Their story teaches us about the temptation to cross borders we are not meant to cross, and the consequences that arise when power is exercised without responsibility. The Nephilim, as hybrid descendants, symbolize the combination of strength, knowledge, and ambition that, without guidance and balance, can lead to corruption, violence, and societal disharmony. The narrative warns that extraordinary gifts require ethics, discipline, and respect for higher laws. The deserts and inhospitable spaces where some Nephilim stories take place also have symbolic meaning. They represent trial and spiritual purification, places where power and wisdom must be tested and refined. By growing in harsh conditions, these extraordinary beings show that greatness is measured not only by physical or intellectual abilities, but by the capacity to endure, learn, and act with purpose. This lesson has a spiritual dimension. The forbidden or extraordinary only has value when integrated with responsibility and awareness. The union between the sons of God and the daughters of men can also be interpreted as a symbol of the interaction between divine potential and humanity. The forbidden race reflects what happens when knowledge, strength, or wisdom combine with human ambition without spiritual guidance. From this perspective, the narrative warns us about the dangers of arrogance, the idolatry of power, and moral deviation. At the same time, it suggests that humans possess extraordinary potential that can be developed if the right path is followed, integrating ethics, faith, and responsibility. Apocryphal texts reinforce this interpretation by describing how the sons of God taught forbidden arts to humanity. Symbolically, this represents the transmission of knowledge and power that can be used for good or evil. Wisdom and skills are not inherently good or bad. Their value depends on intention and how they are used. The story of the Nephilim and the forbidden race reminds us that knowledge without conscience is dangerous, and that true growth requires balance between ability, ethics, and purpose. Finally, from a mystical perspective, the sons of God and the Nephilim can also be seen as archetypes of the human inner struggle. They represent the battle between desire and discipline, between power and humility, between ambition and obedience to a higher order. These stories show that greatness and power can coexist with danger and corruption, and that wisdom lies in recognizing limits, respecting divine laws, and acting with integrity. In summary, the mystical and symbolic interpretation of the sons of God and the Nephilim reveals that these stories are not just accounts of extraordinary beings, but spiritual lessons about human nature, power, ethics, and the relationship with the divine. They teach us that greatness and knowledge must be combined with responsibility, that the forbidden is not necessarily malicious, but a challenge to consciousness, and that the true legacy lies in learning to balance our abilities with wisdom and purpose. This perspective sets the stage for the next section, where we will analyze the legacy and controversy of the sons of God, exploring how these narratives have influenced cultures, religions, and debates throughout history. Have you ever wondered why the story of the sons of God and the Nephilim remains such a controversial and debated topic today? Although Genesis 6 and the apocryphal texts offer striking accounts, the interpretation of these extraordinary beings has generated centuries of controversy, mystery, and cultural debate. Their legacy is not limited to religious texts. Their influence seems to extend to history, mythology, and humanity's collective consciousness, leaving questions that remain unanswered. One of the most important points of controversy is their true nature. Religious traditions have differed on whether the sons of God were fallen angels, exceptional human lineages, or forbidden hybrids. Each interpretation has enormous theological implications. For some, considering them angels disobeys the doctrine that angels cannot reproduce, while for others, seeing them as extraordinary humans diminishes the supernatural character the text suggests. This ambiguity has generated endless debates among scholars, theologians, and curious readers, keeping the mystery of the sons of God alive. The controversy also extends to their historical and cultural impact. Some historians and archaeologists suggest that accounts of the Nephilim could be related to legendary figures of antiquity, such as demigod heroes, giants, or extraordinary leaders who left their mark on different civilizations. From Mesopotamia to Egypt and Greece to other cultures, we find stories of hybrid or giant beings who exercise power and authority, remarkably recalling the biblical narrative. This raises the question, were these stories mere legends or distorted records of an ancient reality that the Bible and other texts wanted to preserve discreetly? Another source of debate is their moral and spiritual legacy. The sons of God and the Nephilim not only represent extraordinary beings, but also a reminder of the dangers of crossing forbidden limits. Their story has been interpreted as a warning about arrogance, corruption of power, and disobedience to divine laws. This ethical lesson has been central in religious traditions, though the way it is communicated varies. Some interpretations emphasize divine intervention and punishment, while others focus on the moral warning for humans. The controversy also involves censorship and text selection. Apocryphal accounts that detail the forbidden race, their abilities and their influence on humanity were excluded from the official canon, generating an aura of mystery. This omission has led many readers to wonder what information was considered too dangerous or disturbing to convey openly. The exclusion of these details fuels conspiracy theories and fascination with the Bible's hidden secrets, making the sons of God and the Nephilim a recurring topic in discussions of religious mysteries and forbidden knowledge. Finally, their influence on popular culture demonstrates that these stories remain alive. From literature and film to video games and modern theories about hybrid beings, the sons of God and the Nephilim continue to inspire imagination and debate. Fascination with them reflects a mix of awe, fear, and curiosity about the limits of the human and the divine, showing that their legacy is not confined to the past, but continues to impact how we understand power, ethics, and knowledge. In summary, the legacy and controversy of the sons of God and the Nephilim show that these extraordinary beings not only generated theological and cultural debates, but also left a lasting mark on history, ethics, and human imagination. Their true nature, historical influence, moral teaching, and the mystery surrounding hidden texts keep their enigma alive today. Understanding this story invites us to question what we think we know about the limits of the divine and the forbidden, and to explore with an open mind the secrets humanity has yet to decipher. The story of the sons of God and the Nephilim shows us a mystery full of power, forbidden secrets, and lessons about ethics, knowledge, and human nature. Their accounts continue to inspire awe and debate, revealing that biblical truth goes beyond what we were always told. If this journey through hidden secrets surprised you, subscribe to the channel to discover more mysteries, like the video to support our content, and comment on which of these revelations impacted you the most. Your participation helps us continue exploring together the secrets that history wanted to silence.